What were the reasons Yoda went into exile? I'm going to give you my 5 reasons why Yoda went to Dagobah. But first, a little back history on Yoda. Now, since 1980, when we first were introduced to Yoda, nobody knows what his race is or what his home planet was. George Lucas even said that his race and his planet were unknown.
And I created Yoda, who was 2 feet tall, large with green ears. But to be very honest with you, I never really figured out where he came from, what his species is called. It doesn't even have a name. Maybe it's somewhere, but I don't know what it is. So he's a mystery character. He's a magical character. He has no background. He comes and he goes. He's the subversive, secret, mysterious stranger that enters the film and then exits at the end.
According to legend, Inkata del Gormo, a Force-sensitive male Hyslerian Jedi Master, was residing on a swamp world when 2 visitors crossed his path. A young hermit named Yoda and a human friend who had crash-landed on the world and came to Del Gormo for assistance. Their barely put-together ship was hit by an asteroid, crippling the craft. All seemed hopeless until they drifted close to a star system where they used the last of their ship's power to crash land on the remote swampy planet. Now, a side note, it was said that Yoda had crash landed on Dagobah. That had to be revised because in the Clone Wars, it was said that Yoda was shown how to get to Dagobah by Qui-Gon Jinn's Force Ghost. So Yoda had never been to Dagobah. He actually was on the Hyslerian's home planet, Swamp World, when he crash landed. So after a couple of days, Master Del Gormo met with the duo and informed them that they were in fact Force sensitive, offering to train them as his Padawans. The legend continues that later, a Galactic Republic starship landed on the planet, answering the distress call that had been sent from Yoda's ship before the crash. Inkata del Gormo did not go with Yoda to Coruscant when he left. It is thought that Del Gormo must have been in a self-imposed exile of his own. It's not clear if Del Gormo took the Barash Vow, an oath taken by Jedi to refrain from all Jedi Order activities, as a form of penitence. They disconnect from everything but the Force themselves. Departing the world, Yoda went to Coruscant, where he continued his training at the Jedi Temple, eventually ascending to the rank of Grand Master. If those events did happen, their dates are lost during the Great Purge, when the self-anointed Emperor Palpatine exterminated the Jedi Order. Like I said before, Yoda first appeared in Star Wars universe in 1980 during Star Wars Empire Strikes Back. Spoiler alert! In the movie, Luke Skywalker heads to the swampy planet of Dagobah looking for the wise old master to teach him the ways of the Force. While Luke and R2 evidently didn't find Dagobah pleasant at all, Yoda seems perfectly at home at the human little world, but then he has to be because he's been hiding there since fleeing the Empire at the end of Star Wars Revenge of the Sith. And like I said, Yoda's first journey to Dagobah was before the Sith coup and before Order 66. So here are the 5 things that I think that were the leading reasons Yoda went to Dagobah, and he claimed it was exile. One thing is that I think that Yoda's failure as a Jedi wounded him spiritually. It hurt his fighting spirit, and he went to Dagobah to recoup, and for Dagobah to either be his refuge from his shame or a place to collect himself until he was ready to strike back, which unfortunately never happened. Number 2, Yoda knew he didn't have what it took to defeat the Sith, and by proxy the Empire. He was basically all alone. Obi-Wan was on Tatooine, hiding, looking after Luke. Yoda didn't know how many other Jedi were out there that survived Order 66. So basically it would have been him against the whole Empire, and he just knew he didn't have what it took to defeat them. Number 3, Yoda believed that the children of the Skywalker could defeat the Sith. For the Jedi to return, a new generation was needed, yet training Anakin Skywalker's children, Luke and Leia, right away would have been too risky in the Empire's early years. Thus, Leia would be adopted to the Royal Organa family of Alderaan, while Luke would be adopted to the Lars family on Tatooine. When the time was right, the two would be trained as the first Jedi in the new improved generation. Number 4, Yoda exiled himself to a Force Vergence. Yoda kept his connection to the Force without revealing himself. So what that means is, late into the story of Star Wars, the Clone Wars, Yoda is guided to Dagobah by the spirit of Qui-Gon Jinn. What he finds is a planet that has the purest connection to the Force of anywhere he's ever been. This is the main reason why Yoda chose this as his hiding place. Dagobah is a Force Vergence. The whole planet is rich in the Force. In Star Wars history, places like this are where both Jedi and Sith built their temples, but it also explains its dark side cave near Yoda's home, which helps mask Yoda's presence in the Force. Unlike the Force, nicknamed the light side, the dark side is not natural, and thus the cave was not always saturated in its energy. Centuries before the prequel trilogy, the Jedi known as Minch dueled and killed a dark side user in the cave, resulting in its corruption. On a side note, Yoda's name was actually going to be Minch Yoda, but they just decided to name him Yoda. Dagobah, however, is a pristine world free from the influence of any other Force users. Like any true master, Yoda would know well that he still has much to learn. He could find no better place than Dagobah to study the higher mysteries of the Force. It's here that Yoda learns how to forge a deeper connection to the Force, allowing him to return later in the saga as a Force ghost. Number 5. Should Yoda have helped the rebels and the citizens? It seems Yoda relied on the dwindling Jedi and rebels to defend themselves from the Empire. While this may seem an apathetic tightrope for Yoda to walk, it is also a responsible decision by the defunct leader. Despite the Empire ruling the galaxy, it would have been an act of civil disobedience to rebel. Arguments for civil disobedience for the sake of justice and respect of human rights are valid and are indeed moral obligations, but for Yoda, rebellion would have made him little different from the Sith Lords. The Jedi Master felt it would have been a grasp for power or a self-preserving act of vengeance to restore the Jedi Order. Yoda rebelling against the Empire would have likely led to even more people unnecessarily losing their lives. His status as an outlaw would have brought harm to anyone involved. Thus, not assisting rebels or civilians could have been a life-saving act of kindness. Furthermore, Yoda's exile allowed rebels and civilians to see how powerful they were without the Jedi. Like a parent watching their child learn their way, Yoda's wisdom would have led him to the conclusion that to restore the balance in the galaxy, people needed to fight and protect themselves. Star Wars is not just a battle of Jedi versus Sith exclusively. It is a battle of peace versus threat, hope versus hatred, light versus darkness. Rebels and civilians learn that they have the power to bring peace and justice to the world. It's a lesson no Jedi should impede, no matter how painful it is to watch. So we have the 5 things I've outlined. Yoda was spiritually injured. Number 2, Yoda knew he didn't have what it took to defeat the Sith. Number 3, Yoda thought the children of Skywalker could defeat the Sith. Number 4, Yoda exiled him on the Force Vergence. And I forgot to mention that he also did that in order to learn how to become a Force ghost. He communed with Qui-Gon Jinn, and Qui-Gon Jinn taught him how to use the Force to become a Force ghost when he passed away. And number 5 was, should Yoda have helped the rebels and citizens? I think those are valid points. I don't think he just tucked tail and ran after Order 66 because he lost and decided, I'm just going to give up. I think he was there on Dagobah doing those things and waiting for Luke or Leia or both to come meet him through Obi-Wan, and so he could train them. Well, I've heard a lot of people talk about how Yoda was cowardly, he ran away, so did Obi-Wan, so did Luke, and Luke just followed in their footsteps. Like I said, I think Yoda had reasons. Obi-Wan, which we'll talk more in depth on another day, he went to look over Luke, and he didn't exile himself per se. He was there as a guardian for Luke. Plus, he thought he had defeated Anakin, so there was no reason for him to be exiled per se, except to try to hide from the Purge and the Empire, which he couldn't defeat the Empire by himself, because Yoda was on Dagobah, and even both of them couldn't defeat the Empire by themselves. And then Luke, which is another thing we should talk about, that wasn't Luke Skywalker. That's all I got to say. That was not Luke Skywalker. That was Jake Skywalker. And I'll keep saying that because a lot of people say that, that it's perfect how Rian Johnson created Luke's character, but I say poo-poo to you. I think that was so much crap. If that was Luke Skywalker, he was on drugs. He was on drugs. That was not the Luke Skywalker from Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi. They totally messed up his character. But we're not talking about Luke right now. We're talking about Yoda. Anyway, I think Yoda did good for himself by hiding from the Empire, training Luke, learning how to become a Force ghost. And if he would have had more time, I think he would have joined with Luke to fight in the good fight. He just didn't have enough time because basically he died at the beginning of Return of the Jedi. Those are my thoughts, and that's my video. And if you're enjoying this content, please subscribe and like this video. Give it a thumbs up. I really appreciate it. We'll come back for more Star Wars and sci-fi content, more Black Series unboxings, more live streams, and more movie watches. And if you're interested, you should really check out this video.